There we are. Hi folks, welcome to our virtual volunteer fair for 2024. This is our sixth VVF event as we acronym it. Our virtual volunteer fair began out of need for connecting projects with that needed volunteers during times of COVID and social distancing. And we've kept this virtual volunteer fair as a way to continue that connection with our partners who are needing at distance service or even virtual or even place-based project volunteers. Consider it a speed dating for our volunteer projects and our volunteer project hosts today. We've got lots of information. Today's event is going to be recorded, so feel free to check in and out as you need to and come back to the recording. We've got lots of information shared on our website. As we get started with our event today, we do like to always share our virtual volunteer etiquette for any of our Master Naturalist meetings that we have online. As you're aware, as an attendee, you are not able to share your video, and that is on purpose. We do want to give our presenters, our project hosts today, the spotlight that they deserve so that they can share their content, share their message, and hopefully sign you up as a willing volunteer for their project as well. During our project fair, we will be moving from project to project. So for our project hosts, if you will mute yourself during other presenters' project presentation, that just helps to make sure, again, that they get that spotlight that they deserve. Our attendees are not able to unmute at any time, but they are able to chat. Michelle and Hannah and I are going to be checking our chat room throughout the day, dropping in links for resources like our catalog, resources like our SurveyMonkey and our website. But that chat is where you as attendees are going to be interacting with these project hosts. Michelle and Hannah and I will be moderating those questions, asking them with time available to our project hosts so that we can get you the responses and some of the answers that you need. Please keep chat on topic and professional and on the specific presentation topic as possible. Please chat to everyone so we're all sharing in the same conversation, and help Michelle and Hannah and I out. Use your best spelling, use complete sentences, and avoid acronyms so that we can make sure that we're asking the question that you intend for us to ask. Our agenda is tight today. We will stick to our agenda times. Each of our projects has 15 minutes to sell their project to you, to talk about what they're going to be working on. And our MC for today is Judith Green with Parks and Wildlife. Judith will be our time master for our event today. So we will be sticking true to that agenda that we have on our website. But as always, this event is being recorded. And you are welcome to come and go and check back in on those recordings as you need to. So our project hosts that are going to be joining us throughout the morning and into the early afternoon are going to share a little bit about their project. All of this information is captured in their catalog, or captured in their digest on the catalog on our website. Michelle and Hannah have both dropped that link in the chat already. But in that catalog and in their presentation today, they're going to talk to you as volunteers about what they're asking for, what they're looking for, what's their why, what's the logistics behind their projects, what you need to bring to the table as a volunteer as far as experience, equipment potentially needed, or additional training that might be needed or hosted as part of their project. But then what's in it for you as well as a project volunteer? What's the benefit for you being a volunteer for their project? That's the speed dating part of this virtual volunteer fair, as well as some simple logistics like location and contact information. All of that is in our project, in our volunteer catalog on our website as well. So if it goes fast today, you can find that all on our website. Speaking of our website, Hannah just dropped it in the chat. It's here on the page. You can get to our virtual volunteer fair going to our Naturalist news page on our website. I've said this a few times. Our full catalog has each project listed and all of the information in the catalog as well as contact information for each of our project hosts. Finally, the next steps after today's presentation is to get signed up with those projects that you're interested in as a Master Naturalist volunteer. To do that, you're going to be using a SurveyMonkey link. We'll be dropping that link in the chat throughout today's event. It's going to be on our website by the end of the day today, as well as emailed out to our Master Naturalist listserv after today's event is over. Using that SurveyMonkey link, you will select the project that you are interested in volunteering with, or projects, multiple, if you're interested in volunteering with more than one project. We're going to leave that link open for a couple of weeks. It will close on Friday, April 26th. After we close that survey, we will then pull the reports off of that SurveyMonkey, share those willing volunteers with those project hosts, and then it's up to those project hosts to reach out, provide additional details, training, and connection details for you as a volunteer for their project. Please note, in some scenarios, our projects may be asking for just a few volunteers, and they may have multiple volunteers sign up for their projects. And so there's going to be a filtering process potentially. And so not every project is going to be able to host all of their willing volunteers. But hey, when is it a bad thing to have too many volunteers rather than not enough? All right, and then Michelle's going to give you, Master Naturalist, the skinny on your VMS needs.
Okay, so for the first question that we get when we hold our virtual volunteer fairs is, how do I log my hours for today? So today would be if you're attending live, or if you're reviewing the presentation after the event, you're reviewing the recording, you can get advanced training today for the closest quarter hour for the amount that you're actually watching. And you would log that as advanced training because this is also our TMN Tuesday for April as well. So normal operation as far as advanced training and TMN Tuesdays for logging hours for advanced training today. And then next slide. A little bit of a delay on my end. And then how do you log hours for projects is kind of the second follow-up question we get after that. So once you've kind of reviewed the projects from today and you found one or a couple that you're interested in and they're available in your area as a Master Naturalist. So some of our projects will be place-based today. Others will be only available to certain chapters in an ecoregion. You would sign up for the project. First, you'd have to have it reviewed and approved at your local chapter level. And then once you've signed up and you've started contributing service to that project, you would mark or report your volunteer service accordingly. And so there's a couple different ways. If your project is a place-based project in your local area and your chapter versus a true virtual project. And so we've got those covered on the next set of slides.
The virtual versus project-based is covered in the PDF here on the website.
And then we have a few projects today that are going to be citizen science projects or citizen science related projects. And just a reminder to our Master Naturalists about our best practices and policies for citizen science projects within the Master Naturalist program. Actually reporting the data is the service. So to boil that down, reporting the data is the service behind Master Naturalist service when you're participating in citizen science projects. And so remember our community science guidelines and policies for the Master Naturalist program, which is listed there. We'll drop the links in the chat as well.
Okay, and then going through our agenda today, as you can see, we have a full agenda today with 10 presentations being presented today. We're going to have 5 presentations presented before we take a 15-minute break, and we will stick to these times. So we've got a few more minutes until we get started with our first presenter, our first project host. And again, Ms. Judith Green is going to be our MC for today and get us started here in just a second. After our break, we've got 5 more presentations that will wrap up the virtual volunteer fair with the goal to end at about 1 to 1:15 with our conclusion and our final wrap up for the day. We do have 2 projects that are not being presented today due to scheduling conflicts with the project hosts. Please don't forget about these projects as they are covered in our catalog on our website. These are interesting projects that you can review in that catalog and sign up for in that SurveyMonkey link throughout the program today as well. And then last but not least, we do have a survey from our Master Naturalist Program sponsoring agency, Texas Parks and Wildlife. They have a QR code and a link that Michelle's dropped into the chat to be able to remain eligible for funding that helps us pay for events like this.
And just a note on this survey, again, it is voluntary, and it will ask you what county this opportunity or presentation is taking place in, and just put the county that you are viewing from today.
So with the link in the chat, I'm going to go back to our agenda, and you are right on time, Judith. Here we go. Oh, and you're muted though.
I realize that. Thank you so much. I am going to be holding up a 1-minute card when you have 1 minute left to your presentation, and I will also be taking off my video during the duration of your presentation. However, about 5 minutes before you're scheduled to end, I will pop back on. If you see me, then that gives you an idea that you have about 5 minutes left, and then I'll hold up the 1-minute card to let you know you have 1 minute left. And that way, hopefully, we can stay on task. And as Mary Pearl mentioned, we definitely will be waiting between presentations. If someone ends early and we don't have any questions, we'll just wait until the next time frame when the next speaker is scheduled. All right, so at this point, we're at 10:15, and our first presentation is going to be Texas Children in Nature Network Volunteer Opportunities. And that's going to be by Alice Jansen with Texas Children in Nature Network. So Alice, are you ready to present?
I'm going to go ahead and screen.
Sure. Yes, go ahead and share your screen. All right, it's coming up. All right, you are in present mode. Yes. All right, you're ready to go, Alice.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? See me okay? Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, my name is Alice Jansen, and I'm the Education Events Coordinator with the Texas Children in Nature Network. You may be familiar with our organization. We are a grassroots network of over 800 partner organizations and individuals dedicated to connecting children and families with nature in Texas to be healthier, happier, and smarter. We share resources, ideas, and strategies and leverage them across the network. And our mission is to ensure equitable access and connection to nature for all children in Texas. So again, you may be familiar with the organization. You may be a partner. You may be an individual member. Maybe you've participated in our webinar series. We offer webinars every month on different topics, health, teacher virtual workshops, field trips, all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm excited to be here today to share this volunteer opportunity with you all. I do want to say that I am also, or was, a Master Naturalist. I did the Master Naturalist program in Austin, the capital area Master Naturalist, a long time ago, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad that the organization and the program is still going strong. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I might need a reminder of how to advance the slide.
Arrows at the bottom left, but it looks like you got it.
Oh, or that. Okay. Or my mouse. Okay. Alrighty. So the project scope for this particular volunteer project is to help us produce interviews. So we produce board member and partner interviews that are sent out approximately every 3 weeks. And you may recognize the gentleman in the photo. That is one of our board members, Richard Heilbrunn, and he is one of our new board members. And so we recently did a board member spotlight interview with him. And so I had the opportunity to interview him and learn more about his background and his path to becoming, in the position that he currently is. And, learning about, the professional path, his favorite nature spots, his favorite things to do in nature, why he cares about the mission of the Texas Children in Nature Network. And so it's a lot of fun, interviewing our board members and our different partner organizations for these interview spotlights that we send out. And you maybe have received one in your inbox if you subscribe to our different newsletters. So let me go to the next slide. So we need, I'm thinking about 1 to 2 volunteers. And, I included some experience with copyright editing, preferred but not required. It's definitely not required. It can be helpful if you have some experience with that. If you just like to write and you like to edit things and you have experience doing that. I estimate that we would need about an hour of some training together, and I would work closely with the volunteers on the whole process, especially in the beginning stages of working on this project. Wrong way. All right. So what you'll do, you will transcribe interviews from Zoom meeting transcripts and recordings and put them into the Spotlight interview email format. So I will be doing the actual interviews, and we record those on Zoom. We download the transcripts. And then from that, because I've been doing this, I then, actually transcribe them into a written format. The downloaded transcripts really help. It's a lot of cutting and pasting and massaging the language. We like our interviews to be very natural and organic and how they're written. We don't want them to be written like a research paper or a really formal article. We wanted to have that kind of natural flow of a conversation in that interview format. So once we get the interview transcribed and into email format, then we put it into constant contact. And so there's a couple of iterations of the process. We get all of our interviews reviewed and approved by the person we interviewed at least twice to make sure that they are good with the information that we are sharing, and just to have more eyes on it before we send it out to our network. And then, so I would be the one putting the final interview into Constant Contact, which is the email platform. And then we send it out to the network, usually about every 3 weeks, and we alternate between a board member interview and a partner spotlight interview. In terms of the schedule, this is awesome because you will work remotely. And any meetings we would have just would be on Zoom. And we do have a schedule of when we send these emails out, and so there are some deadlines that we need to be working around, but we can be flexible, but we do have that schedule. This is an ongoing opportunity, and there's a lot of variables in terms of the time that each interview will take to be transcribed. I'm sort of estimating based on my own experience, 45 minutes to a couple of hours. Some interviews are longer, some people talk more and share more than others. So some are longer than others. So it really just depends. So it's case by case. And our project need, the Texas Children in Nature Network, we're a statewide organization. We have a small staff. It's Sarah Coles, who you all probably are familiar with, our executive director, and then me, and I work part-time. And then we have some grant-funded health and nature liaisons, which you'll meet after my presentation. But basically, just to help us maximize our time. I know we're a small staff, and we have lots of other things going on and responsibilities, grant writing, other just programs, the webinar series, the summit planning. If you've ever been to our annual summit, we start planning, it ends in December and we start planning in January. So it's a full-time annual thing that we're working on. So just to help us have a little bit more reach. Someone asked how many of these per month. So in terms of, we're putting them out about every 3 weeks. So that's not quite one a month that's going out to the network, but you could easily, depending on, your availability, you could work on, this is ongoing. I have interviews, transcripts that I need to transcribe right now, a handful, probably. So this is something that you could work on, consistently, and you could probably do a couple a month. And we're happy to work with your schedule and your time. We just need the help, and I will guide you and support you every step of the way, because this would be an amazing way to help our organization, and is really a project that we need to get volunteers helping with, or an offering that we need to get help with. So the interviews, we do share very valuable conservation and education work that our board members are doing, our partners are doing. And so this is a way to learn, a little bit more about these individuals. It is very interesting to sit down with folks and learn more about their background and what they're doing professionally and why they care about this work. But this is one of our, resource sharing offerings through the organization. And oops, sorry about that. And it's also actually one of the most popular kind of email series that we have. We get more click-throughs on our interviews than some of our other, email offerings. So it is something that people really enjoy, and people, learn something from, and adds value to their participation with the Texas Children in Nature Network. So I see Judith here. You can see my contact information on the bottom. So I encourage you all to reach out if you have any questions. I hope that you all sign up for this volunteer project with Texas Children in Nature Network, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to knowing about the results of the survey. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alice. We still have 4 minutes. So if there are any questions.
There is one question in the chat about typically how many each month would the activity be?
Yeah, I saw that question, and I tried to answer it during the presentation, but I estimate that at least 2. There could be more. There's like a infinite number of interviews that could potentially be done. So, but I'd say at least 2. We have not offered this as a volunteer opportunity to date, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think 2 or more per month for sure. And then like I said, we send these out via email about every 3 weeks, and we alternate between a board member and so Richard's new. We have a handful of new board members, so I'm producing those interviews. Once there's no more new board members, then it'll mainly be focused on the partners, but we alternate every other, and they normally go out on a Friday. And so hopefully that answered the question. Where can I see an example? If you email me, I can forward you the last one. So the last one that we sent out was Richard's interview. I'm happy to forward that on. The interviews are living for the board members on our website, but I don't think we have like an easy way to just download the constant contact email. I saw a question flash by, but I wasn't able to read it.
Yeah, there's some questions about just resources or kind of a look at what you're looking for as far as pure transcription or summarization into a more presentable format with a lot less of the ums that I might say on camera,
Yes.
and into a more presentable interview format.
So we get rid of all the ums and the buts and the, you know, the grammatical, you know, things that come up when we're speaking live. So the best way for me to share that information is for me to send you past interviews. I can send you, you know, board member interviews. I can send you, you know, some examples of the partner interviews, and I can just send those, forward those directly to folks.
Is there an average
It's
word
like,
length, Alice? Is there an average word length? Is
you
there?
know, it's interesting. We haven't put one on there. Now, if it's looking like it's just way too long, then, you know, we might reduce the word count, but we don't have any standards around that per se. And again, some interviews are longer, some are shorter. It really just depends on how much the person is talking and sharing. But that's a good question. But I'm happy to share examples, and you know, I think just yes.
Okay, awesome.
Making the information that it's in the interview, you know, flow well, getting rid of, you know, like we talked about, kind of the language that you might say when you're actually speaking. So, but I will work with folks on all of that. It's not that hard. I mean, I've been doing it for a while, and it's not a science. I mean, but I'm happy to share examples. I think that's a great way.
Carolyn was just confirming it's basically a catch up right now, that you're needing assistance with past interviews, and then after that, maybe about one a month, roughly, or maybe
Yeah, I mean,
1 to
that
3.
sounds like that is reasonable, but yes, a little bit of catch up now, and then, you know, this is an ongoing volunteer opportunity, but I think once we kind of get caught up, 1 to 2 a month, it's probably, I mean, the process does take some time just to, you know, put the interview into the transcribed format, and then getting that review back and forth, making edits, and then, you know, uploading and putting everything into constant contact. So
Okay, well, thank you so much, Alice. I
yeah,
really
you're
appreciate your
welcome.
time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. If you would stop sharing, I think, so that, oh, you did stop. Never mind.
Good.
Sorry about that. Our next speaker is going to be Bridging Communities, translating LEAP program promotional material for education outreach in the Gulf Coast region. And this is by Alicia Fontenot. Hi, Alicia. Are you ready to share?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, awesome.
1 second. Just gonna put my screen up. Are you all able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh,
You did click the share button at the bottom?
yes, let's try this again. Sorry about that.
No worries. There we go. It's coming up.
Okay, perfect.
And then if you'll just put it, I think it's thinking still. There we go. We've got it. You're ready to go, Alicia. Alicia, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. Awesome. So this is actually my first virtual volunteer fair, so I'm extremely excited. My name is Alicia Fontenot. I am one of the health and nature liaisons that Alice mentioned. For those who may have joined a bit later, I'm with Texas Children Nature Network. We are a statewide nonprofit organization with about 800 plus partners throughout the state of Texas, and I oversee anything related to the Gulf Coast region. And so that's just the Houston area and the Galveston area. And we have 2 additional health and nature liaisons, one in North Texas and one in the Rio Grande Valley area. And you'll hear from the health and nature liaison that will be in the North Texas area after my presentation. So let's get into why I am here. I'm super excited. I know I said that already, but I really am. My project is Bridging Communities, translating the LEAP program promotional material. And initially, the project was for my region, but because the LEAP is pretty transferable throughout our regions, I'm also proposing the translation of our promotional materials for the North Texas area, so the Dallas area and the Rio Grande Valley area. And I know you're probably asking, well, what is LEAP? So LEAP stands for Library Explore Adventure Packs, and it is a project that essentially allows families and children to rent out nature backpacks. And so in those nature backpacks, they're filled with tons of neat things. We have a variety of nature-related themes, and the LEAP project has not yet been launched in the Gulf Coast region, in my region, or North Texas. However, it has been launched in the Rio Grande Valley area by Marisa, our other health and nature liaison, and she did so well with that launch and pilot that, you know, we received additional funding to expand those projects to the Houston area and the Dallas area. So that's why I'm here today. So going further into what LEAP is, like I said, it's a nature backpack program that are typically hosted at libraries and schools, particularly because the LEAP program requires a check-in and check-out system to function. And I feel like it's important to go over what LEAP is so you can understand the importance of why I need you guys. Right now we have 9+ themes. Those themes range from stargazing, outdoor skills, birding, insects, gardening and nutrition, and a bunch of other fun themes. A very important aspect of the LEAP backpacks is that the backpacks serve as 2 free entrances into their local state parks in their region. And so children 13 and under already get into the state parks for free. And so the backpack add 2 additional tickets to that state park. So that could be an adult, an older child, or 2 adults, or whatever, you know, that family needs. And so this is an initiative on our part to kind of navigate maybe some financial barriers that may be standing in the way of those families accessing those nature resources in their area. And like I mentioned earlier, our host sites are typically libraries, schools, and health entities. So that health entity could be a public health department, a hospital in the area. And that's important because there's a nature aspect and a health aspect to the backpacks. So there's tons of research out there just emphasizing the importance of being exposed to nature and having nature experiences and how that shapes our emotional, social, physical, and you know, mental well-being. And so it's extremely important that we incorporate that type of information into the backpacks. This project is actually supported by a Driscoll Health Plan in the Rio Grande Valley area. The North Texas and Houston area is supported by the Texas Department of State Health Services. And we are in collaboration with Texas Parks and Wildlife, which is how we're able to offer those 2 additional tickets into the state parks. So this is an overview of LEAP in my region specifically. With the funding that we have received from DSHS, we're anticipating making about 70 to 80 backpacks in the Dallas area and the Houston area. And I wanted to note that each backpack is about $200 because it just reiterates our efforts to make sure that we're putting quality material and tools inside of the backpack. And I'll go further into that in the other slides. And we're allowing each host site to have about 4 to 8 packs. If they, you know, start off with 4 packs and they're like, you know what, we can handle 6, then they can also do that. This is a timeline of what we have been doing to bring LEAP to the Gulf Coast region, to the Houston area. And so right now we are in the phase of onboarding our host sites and just making sure that they are prepared to take on this responsibility. And they are prepared because I feel like that is a huge part of making sure that the LEAP program has a huge impact for the communities that they serve. And so a lot of what I am doing right now is outreach and attending outreach events and getting the word out about the LEAP program so that families are aware in advance, and the buy-in once the LEAP project launches in the area, it's more successful. We have a higher opportunity or a higher rate of succeeding with families, being interested in actually checking out the backpacks, which we don't suspect that they won't be checked out because they did so well in the Rio Grande Valley area. And like I said, we are anticipating to launch this May. However, that's the first wave of backpacks. So typically what we have seen is once we launch, local libraries and schools are like, you know what, I want to bring the LEAP backpacks to my school. And so we are making a few extra backpacks. So if that's the case, we're able to hand off those backpacks to those interested host sites. An idea of the LEAP program is so that communities are empowered and have self-guided nature experiences. And another aspect of the backpack or the LEAP program I want to emphasize is the nature equity. And so that stems from this concept of nature everywhere that we play on with the backpacks when designing this program. So the idea is that regardless of where you live in Houston or where you live in Dallas, whether that's an apartment complex or whether that's a duplex or a mobile home, you're able to still have a nature experience, because what we've noticed is that there are huge disparities in how nature is distributed throughout the Houston area I would speak for. And so acknowledging that, we wanted to create a backpack that allowed those families to still have, to still be able to reap the benefits of having a nature experience. So our next steps, because we are in different phases of launching the LEAP program, the Rio Grande Valley is a year ahead of us, being that they launched last spring, I believe, so it's about a year now. Their next steps look very different from the Houston and Dallas area. So right now, like I mentioned earlier, we're doing outreach events, and I wanted to put these pictures here because I did this outreach event on March 23rd, and I was super nervous. It was one of my, first big outreach events. I believe the event brought in hundreds of people. It was a really big event. It was on the news. They had a helicopter drop like eggs for the kids and stuff like that for Easter. And there was just so many vendors there, and it brought so much attention from the Houston area. And so at my table, I was responsible for bringing an educational aspect. And this activity was actually inspired by the gardening and nutrition themed backpack. And I'm bringing this up because as I was explaining to one of the little kids, she was probably about maybe 5 or 4. I don't think she spoke English, so it just reminded me how much language plays into our access to information and programming such as these. Okay, so I have about 5 minutes left. Okay, so in a nutshell, my project that I'm proposing is that we translate our promotional material for LEAP. So this is just an example of a volunteer flyer that we would need for our upcoming day where we pack all of the backpacks. And it's that simple. We just need the flyers translated. And here are some other examples. So a lot of our flyers are now really word heavy, and it's just giving you an idea of what they look like and what we're requiring. And although they're not really word heavy, it is another task. And like Alice mentioned earlier, we are a small team. And so it would be extremely helpful for someone to come in with that expertise in translating that material. So I'm requesting 9 total volunteers, 3 per each region. The work is completely remote, so it's extremely flexible. And the hours that will be required is, I believe, dependent on your level of expertise and how long it would take you to translate such material. And we are looking to do this during the summertime, early fall, within that time frame. And there's really not much training or equipment needed besides access to the internet to be able to send me the translated material. And thank you so much for listening. I hope I didn't use up all of the time. And I'm open to answering any questions that anyone may have regarding presentation.
Thank you so much, Alicia. We do have about 3 minutes left for questions.
There's a question, Alicia, in the chat. How will the LEAP backpacks be monitored for supplies replenishment? And will librarians and those on site or volunteers be doing this?
Yes, so what we have done in the past is that we have what I like to call them is our LEAP champion. So each host site, so for instance, at the library, the person that would be in charge of maintaining or maintaining the backpacks would be I don't know the exact title, but the lady or man that checks in the backpacks. And so we would have a inventory list with each backpack that they check off. And so they can either put a barcode on the backpack or each individual item. And we've seen host sites do both. So it tracks all of the items that are brought back, or maybe if there's missing items.
Excellent. And then with time for just one more quick question, what target languages are you looking at for your transcriptions?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if I did not mention that. Okay, so we are looking to do, we're hoping to do multiple languages, but our priority right now is Spanish, because Houston, I know for sure, has a large Spanish-speaking population. I believe almost a third um, of the population's first language is Spanish. So that's a really big number or amount of people. So for sure, I know that we're all looking to start off with Spanish translations.
All right. Well, thank you again, Alicia, for your presentation. There were some comments in the chat that appreciated your presentation and the work that you're doing. All right. So we still have about 1 minute. So we're going to, let's see, our next presenter is going to be Jennifer. Jennifer, if you want to go ahead and start sharing, we can go ahead and get you at least loaded up.
Okay, let me go ahead and share. Okay, it's having me rejoin the meeting so that I can share my, so give me 1 second. I'll
No
join.
problem.
Okay.
While Jennifer's getting reconnected for all of our master naturalists listening, again, we're dropping a lot of links in the chat, but all of our resources for today's virtual volunteer fair are posted on our website, on our virtual volunteer fair website page. That's that is the best place to get access for today's agenda, our full catalog, our VMS information page. The SurveyMonkey link is going to be up there. I need to get that updated today. But all of our connection details for today's event are on that Virtual Volunteer Fair website page.
Okay.
All right, Jennifer, I'm going to pass it back to you now.
Okay, Jennifer's presentation is loading. Awesome. So she'll be presenting Pack for Adventure, volunteer event to prepare LEAP backpacks, and with Jennifer Alarios with Texas Children in Nature Network. And go ahead and start when you're ready.
Oh, you are muted though.
Oh, yes, muted.
It's always one more thing. It hides it from you when you start sharing your screen. It should be up at the top in the bar at the top of your screen. If it helps, you may need to stop sharing your screen and
I see it. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
I
we
have
can
two,
hear you. We can hear you.
I have two different monitors, so oh,
No worries. We can hear you.
okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, so thank you for having me. My name is Jennifer Larios, and I'm with Texas Children in Nature Network. We had Alicia just before introduce LEAP. So my presentation will be much shorter, but I'm the Health and Nature Liaison for North Texas. And so, yeah, so she went over LEAP. So just to give a little more, I think why LEAP is so important. It helps connect, children and families. They already spend so much time at libraries. I know I did growing up. So it's a really great program to meet families where they are. And it opens a whole world of nature exploration. Um, and yeah, it helps get families outdoors, and that's all we really want. So my volunteer event will be to help prepare the LEAP backpacks. As Alicia mentioned, uh, myself in North Texas and the Gulf Coast regions are launching LEAP. And we have approximately 80 backpacks each in our regions that will need to be sorted. And so these backpacks have items like, for example, we have a birding backpack, which I will talk about in a bit. It'll have binoculars, field guides, a nature journal for them to, write down which birds they see, for example. And there'll also be activity sheets that will have to be laminated. All of that will be going into each backpack. So as you can imagine, 80 backpacks, that's a lot of sorting that needs to be done. And this is eco-region specific, so it'll be in North Texas and in the Gulf Coast. And if you're, interested in helping out with this, you can reach out to Alicia. Let me go down, and myself. Okay, so for North Texas, specifically, we have LEAP is confirmed to be in Dallas County and Tarrant County. We're starting this pilot launch with these two counties. And I believe as the program gets more exposure, at least in the Rio Grande Valley, they had a bunch of different counties want the backpacks too. So although we're sorting the backpacks this go around for like 80, as we get more funding and more exposure, I'm sure that we're going to need even more help with that sorting. But for now, we just have these two different counties, Dallas County and Tarrant County, as I mentioned, and it'll be in about 16 different libraries. So 8 libraries in Dallas and 8 libraries in Fort Worth. And so for my launch in North Texas, these are the different pack themes that we have. Cooking in the garden, fish and fishing, birds and bird watching, reptiles of Texas, pollinators. We have a community science / outdoor skills backpack, rocks and fossils, and then 2 Spanish packs, which will be the cooking in the garden and the reptiles of Texas. And so for those backpacks, having some of those activity sheets translated into Spanish, like Alicia had mentioned, will be really helpful for us. So what's included in the backpacks, again, we'll have field guides, activity books, nature journals, tools and equipment, and it also serves as a state parks pass for 2 people. And then just some more regional information. For example, the Texas Department of Agriculture is handing out some of their flyers for like the nearest food banks in each specific like region. So that'll be also in the backpacks. And then I just have an example of what they look like. And they'll look a little different in North Texas. We're using like a different backpack. This is from their first launch in the Rio Grande Valley. But I think I have a example of it in the next slide. Yeah, so this will be our backpack. So for the project expectations, as I mentioned, we are expecting to have 80 backpacks in each region. And so volunteers will have the ability to help promote LEAP at outreach events. I was at the solar eclipse event yesterday at the Cotton Bowl. And so I was able to talk about LEAP there. People were really excited to see it launched. And I don't believe that there was a Texas Master Naturalist table there, but for example, if you guys were to be doing outreach there, then that'd be a perfect time to also talk about LEAP. And some benefits for you, as I mentioned, there'll be increased awareness and understanding of LEAP. I'm sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Are there issues, audio issues?
No, ma'am. I think you're sounding just fine. It might be an individual's.
Okay, just
Yeah,
making
we can hear you clearly.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you. There'll be enhanced engagement and participation in LEAP program activities. We have So for the launch, we're gonna have a big launch event for Dallas and Fort Worth, and also in Houston. And so we would like for you all to be a part of that. In the Rio Grande Valley, they had like a press release. So I believe they had the mayor there. There were like a news station. So we are in the works of planning that out. It's really fun. And let's see what's next up. So the logistics of the actual event, um, we would like to have at least 10 to 15 volunteers. For the Rio Grande Valley, it was a multi-day event that they had. I think they underestimated how much sorting would have to be done. And the good thing is that since they already done it, we know what to expect. So approximately 10 to 15 volunteers, and we'll aim for 1 to 2 days of the sorting, depending on how many of the volunteers we do receive. And then the sorting can vary between 4 to 8 hours, spread across those 2 days. So it's not too much of an undertaking. And the sorting will take place for Dallas, it'll be at the downtown location, the Central Public Library, downtown, because they have the bigger space. And from what I was told, we have my contact at the Dallas Public Library is actually a Texas Master Naturalist volunteer. So she said that she could reach out to other volunteers as well. And for Fort Worth, we still are looking for which library has the capacity to have the hosting or the sorting event. But I'll definitely keep you all posted about Fort Worth if any of you are located or in and around Fort Worth. And so no experience or equipment will be needed. We will be supplying all the equipment. So for laminating, we'll have the lamination machine, and everything is going to be um, already there. Like all the materials, items, the backpacks, of course, will be all there. So yeah, no additional training will be needed. And again, I apologize. This was a lot shorter, but they had gone over what the program is. And this is just another example of what the backpack looks like. And yeah, you have any questions?
We do have a few, I believe, and we got about 4.5 minutes to
Okay.
answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions and a lot of interest focused in on expanding the program geographically to other areas. You touched on it briefly, but would you mind sharing a little bit, Jennifer, about, I guess, plans or ideas for expanding geographically?
Yeah, so right now we only have the funding for those 80 backpacks in each of the regions, but our executive director, Sarah Coles, is actively looking for outside grants so that we can, increase the amount of backpacks we can put out and into other counties. So for right now, as I mentioned, it shows the Dallas and Fort Worth, uh, like cities or public systems that express interest from getting those backpacks. But we do have community centers and rec centers. Parks and Rec Department was interested in hosting some of those backpacks. So there is a lot of, want of those backpacks. So we're hoping as time goes on and people see just how popular the program is that we can receive more funding. Um, but yes, I'm looking into Texas Health and Cook's Children to hopefully, collaborate with them. Just in the Rio Grande Valley, they had Driscoll Health Plan, their private hospital. So yeah, we're actively looking for more funding outside grants. So if any of you are aware of any, we would, love to apply to those.
Speaking of the Valley, there was a question in the chat about additional opportunities to volunteer from some of our RGV or South Texas Border chapter members.
Yeah, Marisa, our health and nature liaison down there, is always so busy. She would be more than happy to have as many volunteers as she can get. She has, I believe she did 2 different launches already because the backpacks were so popular. So yeah, I can send her contact information after the call, or how could I get that to
Yeah,
you?
you can
Can I
drop
just
it in the chat when you get a chance here in just a second. But Marisa was also going to be a presenter for one of our projects at the end of the day today.
Okay.
She's not able to make it because she is so busy, as you said. But her contact information is in the project catalog on the last presentation of the virtual volunteer fair today.
Okay, perfect. I'll drop it too, just in case, in the chat.
Perfect.
We have about a minute left, and there's one question. There's a few actually in the chat. If you wouldn't mind looking at those, Jennifer, if you can, and then answering them later. But there is one about, is there curriculum included in the backpack for kind of guiding, I guess, the parent and or the group using it?
Yeah, so for those backpacks, we also have so many nature partners in in all of the regions. And we have, I believe, like the Dallas Arboretum wants to do something with the backpacks, like the Dallas Zoo, the Fort Worth Zoo, to like come in and have little events scattered throughout the season, summer, fall, with those children who like want to, or families who want to uh, be at those like little events. But definitely we're gonna have nature programming attached to those backpacks.
Okay.
Sorry, I was
Awesome.
trying to
No, no
go
worries, no
quickly.
worries. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. Really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And if you would again check the chat, there are a few unanswered questions that we didn't quite get to, and helpful if you could answer them for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with that, we are going to move on to the next presentation. It's going to be Armchair Botanist, Mapping the Plants of Texas, with Ashley Bates. And she is with the Botanical Research Institute of Texas. And Ashley, if you'd like to go ahead and share, we can go ahead and get you loaded up before we start. Or actually, it's time now, so whenever you get loaded up, you can go ahead and start right away. And we can see your screen, and you're welcome to get started. And I can hear you. Yes, ma'am. So go ahead and get started.
Thank you, guys. Yes, I'm Ashley Bales, and I'm the collections manager for the Brit Phyllocology Herbarium at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. So today I'm just going to share our project right now that we're doing through our Armchair Botanist program. You may have participated or heard about this project in the past when we transcribed our herbarium specimens, and now we're to the phase where we are georeferencing or mapping the plants of Texas. So like I said, we've been digitizing our Texas and Oklahoma specimens, imaging and transcribing specimen data, and now we're on to the mapping portion. So we are one of 46 herbaria from Texas, across Texas and Oklahoma, digitizing our combined, 2 million herbarium specimens. We started the transcription process around 2020, maybe a little bit earlier. And so now we are georeferencing or attaching coordinates to these specimens. So, I mean, the great thing about, we love our Texas Master Naturalist, and we think that you guys are so attuned to the places in Texas. You have a really good understanding of geography, history, habitats, natural history of certain places that you're from. And we think, this boots on the ground knowledge that Master Naturalists have, and the attention to details, really makes y'all the perfect candidates to be able to attach geo coordinates to our specimens. So we're hoping by the end of this project, we're able to put specimens on a map, going back, hundreds of years up till present day, that can be available for the public and research. So this is just an example of a herbarium specimen with a zoomed in look at the label. and you can see there's a locality on there. So taking that textual locality, being able to assign it a decimal Latin long and some degree of uncertainty is the goal. So the map on the far right is this particular species across Texas, specimens of this species across Texas. So there is a volunteer. She may or may not be on the call with us right now. She has been wonderful with us. I think Williamson County was the first county she did. So I just wanted to share what that looks like. All of our specimens on the map from Williamson County, and then there's a zoomed in version. So previously, none of these specimens were viewable on a map, and now they are. So this is just a closer look at the count. We've been doing this at county level. So on the left, you'll see we've completed 51 counties so far. So if you're from the Panhandle, you'll be happy to know that a bunch of these counties have been completed. And then you can see in the middle, we have 8 that are currently assigned and in progress, either by volunteers or some of our staff. So Bell, Bear, Colin, Erath, Neelam, Tarrant, Taylor, and Travis. And then there's a lot of counties in Texas. So there are still 196 counties to go through. You know, some are obviously have fewer specimens than others. But this is still a big task. And if you see a county on there that hasn't been done, that you feel like you have a good boots on the ground knowledge of, this may be a really cool project for you to participate in. So getting to the logistics, we kind of surveyed a few of our volunteers right now, and it's a mix of the time commitment per week or per day that volunteers have been spending with us. So some maybe spend like 30 minutes a day or just a few hours a week. But I would say that probably the biggest time commitment in the beginning is training, which we'll get to in just a second. Whether you're familiar with maps or not, I think that anybody, any Texas Master Naturalist, once they've gone through the training, would be able to easily participate in this project. We were joking that we would need, 256 volunteers, one for each county. But I've shared Vicky's map of Williamson not too long ago, and she has already moved on to other counties as well. This project started last fall. So we presented this project at the last volunteer fair. But at that time, we didn't have our training and protocol even kind of good to go yet. Because we're collaborating with other institutions, it makes it hard to decide on a protocol. So I'm excited that this time for this volunteer fair, we will basically be good to go to start training volunteers and getting them through some of those some of the beginning training, and it's already ready to go for volunteers to get started on. This is mostly a remote activity. I mean, from the comfort of your home on your computer. But if you're local in the Fort Worth area and want to be on site and kind of have someone on staff right there with you to either like answer questions right away, you're more than welcome to come in on site to the herbarium here. So I mentioned some like prerequisites or some training. So if you're interested in this project, we'll send you a brief questionnaire to get to know your interest and experience. You know, do you have some counties that you would prefer to georeference? There will be some reading about georeferencing in general, then some virtual or in-person training with us. And then finally, before getting started, you'll finish a test data set of about 30 specimen localities using the protocol, and then we'll go over that with you, and then you'll be good to go. So some of the experience equipment, some training needed, obviously an access to a computer will be required. I've found that having even a second screen is super helpful, but you don't necessarily need a second screen. Experience, but really just interested in historical places and feeling comfortable to even navigate certain web pages. I know one that is used frequently is Find a Grave. That has been helpful for some people. And then I can go into some of the more advanced training. But primarily for communication, we try to be as quick as we can with email. We've had a few Zoom meetings, but really being able to use Slack has been really helpful for quick communication with, excuse me, not even just our staff, but other volunteers. We've seen that it's really been helpful to see what other volunteers are doing, even though they're in a different county. There may be some really good online resources that can be for other counties in Texas. So I guess these 10 steps of training, I mentioned the interest and skills survey, and then more of a self-study. We'll give you reading material and a few training videos to go over. Eventually self-study into maybe the assigned county you're given, just to kind of get a good understanding of your county if you don't already know. There'll be a 10 locality sample, more one-on-one with us, practicing in the actual platform that you'll be georeferencing in, the test, and then a little bit more one-on-one. And it sounds like a lot of steps, and depending on your pace, you could do this all in a week or could be a month. But then, of course, we're always in communication, answering questions when we can, once you've gotten started on your county. So how does this benefit you? I mean, this really is a great way to improve your knowledge of, floristic exploration in your area by pulling together all this historical, cultural, scientific information. I know my volunteers have really enjoyed, feeling almost like, experts in their county historically, and now they really have a better idea of what species have been growing in the past in their county. And then eventually, I think that having access to this data on a map, eventually, I think will be great for maybe revisiting some of these areas, seeing if some of these species still exist anymore, or are some of these populations, extirpated. Maybe there's a parking lot there now, for example. Um, what's great, we have our Slack channel and email and Zoom. Every month we have a Armchair botanist forum, where we have topics of all kinds. So it's kind of our way of giving back knowledge to everyone who's been helping us out with this project. And yes, this is really a way to kind of find the gaps. I mentioned, seeing if species still exist, but also what, after georeferencing a county, what are some specimens that are species that that you've seen potentially in your county, but there may not be an actual voucher specimen for it. So again, it's going to be really great going into the future for research and for the public. So again, I mean, I mentioned, getting a better historical wraparound of your county, but also I think it's a great way to get familiar with Texas flora, being exposed to all sorts of new resources online for other projects and that you may run into. And again, I think that master naturalists are some of the best folks to be working on this project. Think that's it for me. Tried to be quick, but I know I saw some questions in the chat, so I can start looking at those maybe.
Yeah,
Great.
we
Is there any?
Yeah, lots of questions in the chat, Ashley.
Okay.
Lots of interest and excitement.
Cool.
Vicki Sinwell is on the call, and she appreciated
Yay.
the shout out. So yay, go Vicki.
Yes.
I'm gonna just go down in order on some of these questions. So I apologize if we run out of time to get to all of the
No
questions.
problem. Yeah.
One of the questions here was, are you guys work-related leveraged with the work that Stacy Hines is working on with the Texas Plant app? She's developing a native Texas plant app. She works for AgriLife Extension. If not, I'll make that connection there.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about that project. I've actually not heard about that. But I'd be interested in what, it would be great eventually, maybe after this project is over, to be able to hand data to them. And
Yeah.
at least that's really good historical data for them.
Happy to make that connection with Stacy, and I'll send you an
Yeah,
email with that.
thanks.
Nancy asks in chat about if this will or what the overlap looks like with iNaturalist.
Yeah, I think what researchers and like at least, some of our botanists here, um, I think that I've found that botanists have really appreciated iNaturalist observations, but there's really something to say about these specimen vouchers. They are research grade, and I think that they are definitely complementary whenever botanists are, potentially going out in the field. They'll probably look at both. They'll probably see specimens in the area that they're about to collect, as well as iNaturalist observations. So I think both are equally as important. And like I said, I do think that botanists will be able to use both of the data from INAT and specimens for their work.
We are going to run out of time for some of these questions, Ashley. So if you're able to stick around and answer some of them in chat, I'll ask one more. Do you need help with counties that are already in progress? As some of the counties that you had listed already had been identified as being worked on, is there additional support needed?
Yeah, I think so. So some of these counties, like I said, can range in the number of vouchers. And so I think there's definitely room for those counties that are already in progress for new volunteers to hop on if there's still more specimens to be done. Yeah,
Never enough room for all the volunteers. There's
totally.
always room for more volunteers.
Totally. And even, if you don't get the county of your choice, even an adjacent county is still, I think, beneficial. Yeah.
I think we have time for one quick one, and I'm going to ask it real quick. Do you have to be proficient in plant identification for this project?
Definitely not.
Awesome.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again so much and for sharing your project with us. And I'm glad it's going well over the past year. So our next presentation is going to be Warock herbarium updates with Sally Balch with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And Sally, we still have about a minute if you want to go ahead and upload at this point in time. A little less than a minute, probably.
Or just share?
Oh, share. I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Okay, it's 11:15, so I'm going to repeat myself. We are currently going to be presenting Warock herbarium updates by Sally Balch with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And Sally, we can hear you, so feel free to go ahead and get started. And I will pop in 5 minutes before time is ended, just to let you know you have 5 minutes left.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, good morning. I'm Sally Balch. I'm Chief Curator with Curatorial Services in Texas State Parks. And we are charged with caring for the Texas State Park interpretive collections, which means that they are the objects that we use to tell the Texas State Park story. So we have collections that are man-made, like the Silver Service that was donated to the Battleship Texas by the people of Texas in 1914. We have art objects like there's a 17-foot long mural at Goliad State Historical Park. And then we also have natural objects like the herbarium at Big Bend Ranch State Park. We operate out of Austin and we travel this state, and it's pretty big. Let's see if I can get this to work. So this project is updating the Warock herbarium database. As a student of Homer Sperry at Sul Ross Teachers College in the late 1930s, Sperry arranged for Barton Warock to work at the new Big Bend National Park to inventory and collect plant specimens. From there, he went on and got advanced degrees and then came back to Sul Ross and continued documenting the plants of the Big Bend region. During the 1980s, when they were trying to get the land that would become Big Bend Ranch State Park acquired, he went onto the land and did a plant inventory and survey with his students. They would collect the plant, dry them between blotting paper, and then mount them on the acid-free stock. Dr. Warnock would then ID the specimens while he was preparing them, but it's been almost 40 years, so a lot of the names have changed. Our project is to update the nomenclature of in the database, and we need help with the recataloging, I guess, essentially the 1,600 herbarium specimens that were collected and analyzed at that time. In 93, they were moved from the ranch house to the newly acquired Lajitas Desert Museum and renamed into the Barton Warnock Environmental Educational Center. That was done by my team. My team also then added them to our database in 2000 using the then current taxonomy levels. But technology has changed, as well as how we classify plants. So to make it accessible to today's herbarium users, we need to update our database so that we can load it in. Each catalog record is going to need updated taxonomy fields. As you can see, what I've highlighted, those are the fields that we're updating, and we're using the TSN number to do that. We're also reviewing the new pictures that were taken and seeing if we captured what was on the plant label right. And sometimes our typing was a little inaccurate at the time in 2000. Our database is cloud-based, so it turns out we were prepared for teleworking when the need rose in 2020. Our battleship curators road tested the system for us in 2019 when the ITC fire shut down the San Jacinto battlefield, and the park was closed for weeks and weeks. So this is an example of what we are going to do. We take we zoom the picture, and then we can read what is on the plant label, and then we can verify that rock flax is still Linum rupestre, and that is essentially how we update it. So what you'll provide is the ability to judge if the specimen is correctly identified on the herbarium label, and then using the herbarium label information and a computer with a web browser, since we're cloud-based, and decent internet connectivity because the pictures are big, we'll look up the taxonomic serial number on IDIS, or actually Wikipedia is very nice because they also include a photograph. We will provide training session on how to use our database and how to get on, and we're available to assist during working hours. So, the benefits. Dr. Warnock inventoried the plants of Big Bend Ranch to create a record for future researchers, and now we are the future. You will be helping keep this plant inventory from being forgotten by making the data shareable. Our stretch goal is to integrate Dr. Warnock's Plants of Big Bend into Torch, making it available to a wider audience. I took a screenshot of Torch here, and as you can see on this incredibly common Nolina texana, there are no specimens in this huge 300,000 acre space of Big Bend Ranch State Park. So that is our stretch goal, is to get this accessible to current researchers. So our logistics are, we need 2 to 5 volunteers working from home. You can work your own hours 24/7 because it's cloud-based. Our database is accessed on a web browser. In 2017, a volunteer in Lajitas took new pictures of all the specimens. Thank you, Gary. And we've attached those photographs so the record can be updated using the image. I have noticed there are a few photos missing, so we may have to run out there and take some more. We've updated about 600 records so far, and we have about 1,000 to go. But it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I am the project contact for this particular thing. And however, if you want to visit the herbarium, you can go out to the Barton Warnock Visitor Center in Terlingua, and they have what is called open storage. So the green cases here are the herbarium specimens. Or at Davis Mountain State Park, we have a smaller subsection of his collection that is related to the Davis Mountains State Park at the Visitor Center in that state park. So that's my quick and dirty project. Are there any questions?
We do have about 7 minutes.
Okay.
I had a quick question for you, Sally, as we're waiting
Mhm.
for chat questions coming in. You talked about this project from Warnock's original creation of the herbarium. Are there other state parks around the state that have related studies and programs? Not all of our master naturalists may be able to participate in some of those on-site things in Big Bend Ranch State Park or in the
Or on the
Big Bend
cloud.
Trans-Pecos
Yeah.
area. Are there other parks or other resources closer to some of other volunteers that they could get engaged with?
That's a good question. There are 2 or 3 other herbarium collections on wildlife management sites, and that is under wildlife. So I'd have to do a little bit of research on whether they have current projects going. But I think one's at Mason, and I have forgotten where the second one is. There.
We won't hold you to remembering on the spot,
Mhm.
but if you do get a chance or if you have some information on that, we can drop that in the chat
Okay.
later as well. That'd be great, just to share with those that may not be in the Trans-Pecos ecoregion.
Right. And this is, since it's on the cloud, the database is on the cloud, you could be anywhere at any time of the day. Doesn't matter, whenever your brain enjoys doing some work. You can do it from the comfort of your armchair. It is the fact that we may have some pictures that we have to retake. That's on us, but we'll be going out there in September or October, so we can take those photos. But for the
That seems
summer,
like such a hard job to be forced to go out to Big Bend and take more pictures.
I know. Well, it's funny. You learn the scale of the state when you do that, because if we're going to go to Indian Lodge, then we might as well try to swing by other sites. And so we have swung by Warnock and then swung by Seminole Canyon, because it's within hours of each other.
Yeah.
Beautiful country, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Project for our master naturalist chapters that are already in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or anywhere. That's the beauty of the cloud. It allows you to do whatever you need to do wherever you are.
I was excited when I found a Warnock field guide of West Texas and it was signed by him. I was like, "Woo!"
Oh yeah.
I was excited.
His nephew recently donated some of his equipment to the Warnock Center that they had found in a, as one does, you find in a closet.
Wow.
So there's still some Warnock stuff kicking around.
Awesome.
Well,
So we
there's
do
no.
still,
Yeah, go ahead, shoot it.
I was just going to say, we do have about a little under 4 minutes left. So we are going to, if there are no other additional questions, then we're going to kind of just pause until 11, let's see, what do we have?
45.
We've got a break right now, right? Yeah. So if that's the case, then we will all return at 11:45. So you'll have a break until 11:45 and we'll start sharply at 11:45.
And thank you all for letting me come and talk about this.
Yes, thank you coming. Thank you so much, Sally, for coming and sharing. I can't remember. Mary Pearl, do you have a screenshot that says we're on break, or?
You were 2 seconds ahead of me. I was just going to put the whole agenda up.
Awesome.
Hey folks, we have another couple minutes until we return from our break for our virtual volunteer fair part 2, our afternoon sessions. We have 5 more sessions this afternoon or after our break. Not quite into the afternoon, some of them will be. So we'll get started here in just another couple of minutes. Judith, if you're in front of your computer again.
I am.
We had a couple of presenter updates that I forgot to make to this agenda that I have on the screen here. But Jim will be presenting next at 11:45. And then Terry Hendrick will be joining us for the 12:15 and 12:30. And then finally, and I think you knew this one, Alicia will be presenting our final session of the day.
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So for our Master Naturalists, I show a little over a minute left until our break ends, and we'll get started back up in just a second.
And just as a reminder as well, for those that are presenters, I will be stopping my video during your presentation, but when I pop back on, that just tells you that you have 5 minutes left if you need it. Doesn't mean that you need to stop when I show up at 5 minutes in or left. But I will also put up a 1-minute card if you are still presenting towards the end of your 15 minutes, so that way you have at least a little idea that you need to wrap it up within the minute. Otherwise, we'll just, if you're done, then we'll just go ahead and do with some Q&A if there are any. So we have a little less than a minute. So if Jim, are you there by chance? Jim, I see you. If you'd like to go ahead and upload your, I keep saying that. If you'd like to share your presentation, then please go ahead and do so.
Okay, I did. Let's see here. There we go.
I see it's popping up. Yes, it's popping up and I see it. Awesome. And I can hear you. So we've got about a little less than a minute. So we'll just go ahead and wait. All right, it is 11:45, so we're going to go ahead and get started again. Our next presentation is going to be 1 million new acres of native native plant habitat. And Jim Caras is with Native Flora Seeds is going to be presenting. So go ahead, whenever you're ready, Jim.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot. I think this presentation hopefully will be of great interest to master naturalists. I think there's a unique appreciation for native plants as well. And I think the program that we have might be a little different than some of the others you've had for volunteers, but we feel like there's a great opportunity for your members to use these programs in your volunteer hours. Native Flora Seeds is a new organization. It's less than a year old. I'm presently serving as executive director and as a volunteer. It's a 501c3 organization with grassroots, basically to regenerate native habitat around the country. It's kind of a unique approach. It's much more focused around doing things that tie to the end product of building habitat. Anywhere from large gardens to home gardens to large scale plantings. So it's got a wide variety of approach in terms of how we're willing to do it. It's a volunteer managed organization, and we're basically starting off state by state across the country to implement the program. My role, I've been serving as the Vice President of Communications for the Native Plant Society of Texas on the board of directors there, up until recently, where I'm dedicating most of my time now to this particular program. The problem, as we all know it, I think, and without going into any great detail, is what's happening to our native plants. I guess since the explorers came, right? Things have started happening in terms of invasive.
I think we lost Jim. Is that
I
correct?
think we lost Jim for just a second. Yeah. I know there's a storm system going through here where I'm at in Central Texas. So hopefully we will get Jim back on here in just a second.
Would you happen to have his number in case he doesn't realize that he's?
I will look it up right now.
Because I have done that where I presented for about 15 minutes during a presentation before I realized I'd been talking to myself. Oh, I see. Okay. Hillary found the number. Okay, I will give him a quick call.
I can do that, Judith.
Oh,
So that
okay. So if we lost him, I still see his presentation online. So
I do too. I bet it's just
frozen, maybe.
lost connection. Yeah.
Okay.
Hang tight with us, Master Naturalists. If we're not able to get Jim back on with our tight schedule, we will have to move on at our times at our next time change at 12 o'clock. But we might be able to bring Jim back on at the end of the day today and make sure that we get his content shared. Excuse me, that we get his content shared.
Process.
Oh. Hey, Jim.
Yes.
We lost you for a minute. So.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Am I back now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We can see you.
I'm apologizing, but there's a lot of lightning going on in the background.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so phase one again is just our online program and being able to provide seeds for individuals to grow in their home gardens. That's a baby step, but it's an important step. I think phase two is where we're working with conservation groups in being able to partner with them to serve as the seeds in the ground resource at the local levels. Working with seed producers is important, that we identify who they are, where they are, what they can produce, so that their products will serve in the areas that we're wanting to plant. And managing this whole thing as an end-to-end sort of a project management approach is another area. We have to be able to understand and identify, of course, the species for the various areas that we're going to be planning in. And I think finally to communicate the whole program is an important area that we need to capture. I wanted to give you a kind of an outline of the program, but our whole area, because we're nonprofit and volunteer based, is that we are looking for volunteers that have a passion to increase the plant habitat for native plants. I think it doesn't have to be scientifically oriented. It can be, hopefully they're very practical with maybe your business careers that have skills that you can apply and help us accomplish this end-to-end mission. Some of the specific areas of volunteering are the dealing with, for example, the online store support. We have an area there dealing with fulfillment and customer service. This is an area where we've had our store now for about 6 months, and the sales have been very, very good, and it's very exciting actually to be able to ship native plant seeds to individuals to plant in their gardens. The funds, of course, are the primary objective for this first phase. Part of this also requires support in volunteering that have skills and interest in marketing or communications, such as working with Facebook or Instagram or X or some of the social media programs that we need to have in order to attract people to the website. And again, being able to identify new plants to offer on our website in terms of developing planning instructions and things like that are all part of that online support area. All of these openings that we have are, will be trained when we do our onboarding. So they're all different, obviously. Another area in the collaboration side, and that's that's basically the phase 2 is building these relationships with the conservation groups. There's just a lot of them around the country, and we just need to methodically go through and identify them and to build that relationship with each one individually. We obviously have to manage the project, so there's a skill level there, and that we could use some help on. Also, it's important that we for every project that we have, we create a storyboard, a storyline, if you may, to document the success. And be able to use that ongoing for our fundraising and our growth. In the area of education and awareness, the awareness for native plants is an area that really we need to support a lot heavier than what it is today. I think the populations that we have just don't really have an appreciation for native plants in general and the value and the purpose for them. I think developing video topics is part of that, and also working in youth programs, both at the elementary school and high school levels. So volunteers in those areas that have those kinds of skills would be really appreciated. Also, in our funding area, the skills around donations and grant management is an area that we could really use some good help on. Working with the seed producers, as we said, we're as a 501c3, we want to make sure that we get the best quality products and take advantage of whatever opportunities the seed producers can give us in providing products at a reasonable or below reasonable, hopefully, cost. And finally, in terms of resources, is the ability to manage volunteers. We expect to have a fairly large volunteer group. So there's a certain skill around how do you manage the volunteers in terms of their onboarding, in terms of their assignments and the back office kinds of tools that they need to work with. This is a lot of different types of skills that we could use. And I think all of them have a basis on your passion, again, for wanting to build native plant habitat.
I'm sorry, I do need to step in here. There are, if you can go back to that slide, there are 2 places, 2 of those projects that our volunteers cannot help with.
Okay.
And that is the fundraising and the online store support.
Gotcha.
Which were not outlined in your abstract. So the collaboration and partnerships and education and awareness are the projects that our master naturalists could help with. The others would not be eligible.
I fully understand, and thank you very much for that. Even with that in mind, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity areas for volunteering, and I think that's again, it's all tied to the end product that we're trying to achieve here. And again, the volunteers that we feel could participate can be part of this solution that we're trying to achieve in building such a large opportunity for native plant growth in the country. I'll end there and ask for any questions.
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate that. And it sounds like a great project for sure. I would love to see nothing more than this whole state get native plants back in place for sure, especially where a lot of development has been happening. And unless I missed any, Mary Pearl, did you see any questions yet?
I don't have any chat. Just as again, a reference point, as Michelle mentioned, the project outlined that Jim mentioned, where master naturalists can provide service, are outlined in our project catalog. Hannah will drop that link in the chat for those that are listening to this live. For those listening to our recording afterwards, please make sure that you're checking into our project catalog to reference the best project details for this project as approved for the virtual volunteer fair.
There is one question I see. It does ask if your team works with invasive removal as well as planting natives.
That's a great question. As far as our present business plan, you might say, no, it doesn't really address the removal of invasive plants. However, certainly a tangent opportunity once we get going.
Very good. Oh, how far along is the project now?
Yeah, we've been in existence a year, so we're very young. We're just now expanding out into phase 2. So we have about 3 opportunities that we're in the process of analyzing uh, in terms of larger scale planting. So we're just right at the very beginning, and that's why our urgency for volunteers is so great right now.
Is nativefloraseeds.org the same as your organization?
Nativefloraseeds.org is the same, yes.
Okay. All right. We've got about a little less than probably 2.5 minutes. Let's see. Oh, it says documentation on native plants and growth is very interesting. Could we help with that?
I think it's part of the educational process of communicating the importance of native plants. That would certainly be a part, in developing blogs and developing articles and developing those kinds of things to make the level of awareness much higher than what it is today. Sure.
I'll say there's lots of other programs that are very similar, Jim, and I love the collaborative spirit in Texas for native plant organizations that are both documenting and educating and providing shared resources. And many of our master naturalists are familiar with those other groups, those other projects and programs, and all tides float common boats, or however that saying is supposed to go.
But we're the new kids on the block, I guess, and organizations like Homegrown National Parks and things like that are, I think we want to work with them and not so much in opposition to them, and that may be part of the solution.
Definitely.
We're going to run out of time for some of the other questions that might get asked in chat. So Jim, feel free to stick around and chat.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we still have about exactly 1 minute left, and thank you again, Jim, for presenting. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We all do. And then our next presenter is going to be Marla Lane. And Marla, if you are there, I think I see you. If you would like to go ahead and share your screen and get you set up before we start. Okay, it's popping up and I see it. Yes,
I love
ma'am.
it when things work.
Yes, I know, it's nice. All right, so we are not quite at 12, so we're going to wait just a few more seconds.
Okay.
Okay, it is 12 o'clock, so we're going to start with our next presentation, Agents of Nature, a Discovery Challenge with Marla Lane, and she is with Blackland Prairie the Blackland Prairie Raptor Center. So go ahead, Marla.
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I am Marla Lane. I'm a volunteer at the Raptor Center. I volunteer and I'm the volunteer coordinator. I'm also a master naturalist with the Blackland Prairie Blackland Prairie Master Naturalist chapter. So we're adding a very exciting educational tool to our programming here at the Raptor Center. And it was just so obvious to me that we should reach out to my fellow master naturalists to help us with this program. So let me tell you a little bit about the Blackland Prairie Raptor Center. We're located in Collin County, close to Dallas. We have 66 acres. We're on the shores of Lavon Lake. We're a 501c nonprofit. We're entering our 20th year of service. We're primarily staffed by volunteers. You might be interested to know that 60% of our volunteers are Texas Master Naturalists. We're very close partners with the Blackland Prairie chapter, and we serve the entire North Texas area and beyond. We have 3 pillars to our mission. Our first pillar is conservation. We have a team of dedicated volunteers that are restoring much of the 66 acres back to the original Blackland Prairie. We feature nature walks by master naturalists, and we teach the public about the unique and highly endangered ecosystem and just the value of native plants and wildlife. The second pillar of our organization is to rehabilitate injured, sick, and orphaned raptors, including bald eagles. In 2023, we took in over 700 birds, and we were able to release 76% of those birds back into the wild. We have a full-time veterinarian, and we have an experienced rehab manager on site that really helps us attain our goals. The third pillar of our organization mission is education. We have 13 ambassador birds where we visit schools, civic organizations, outreach events, libraries. We go everywhere in North Texas. Last year, we interacted with over 186,000 people, and so many of those people were children. As part of our property, we also have a beautiful park. It's open to the public for special events, scouting events, homeschool groups, and we're open every first Saturday of every month. Education is a really critical part of our mission. So it made sense to engage with agents of discovery so that we could really start with a mobile gaming platform. We're going to be launching this in the fall of this year. It's a mobile app. It's free to the public, and it's being used all over the United States right now. It's in state parks, city parks, nature centers, zoos, and a lot of other places where children and families and nature meet. It's easy to use. It's engaging for families and children. There's different challenges that can be created based on topics or seasons, special events, group goals, or curriculum. The ask today is to recruit volunteers that have a passion for education, have a passion for children and families, people that can work remotely, and help us build content for a variety of missions for all age groups. Now, I know we have a lot of experts out there in a variety of subjects, and we need you. If you have the same passion for education and children that I do, then you should be part of our team. So here is an example of the missions that, this is an example of our Agents of Discovery. It starts with a mission. So we have limited time today, but I want to try to give you an overview. So much of the information and direction will be given to you when you raise your hand to join our team, but it starts with building a mission. A mission is for a targeted audience, either by age group, school curriculum, a family adventure, celebrating a special event. So like think International Vulture Day, Scout group, badge work, just many others. So inside the missions are challenges. Challenges can be engaging and fun. They can be informative. It could be a find and seek activity, an identification activity. You could ask questions, or you might just ask the player to think about something. It could be a scavenger hunt or just fun facts. So when you're building this game, you can think about how would you have wanted to play a game when you're kids? How do you see your kids, your grandkids play games and interact with nature now? So you can use your already great experiences that you have to help build this out. Now, once they do finish the challenge, they get points or they get a little prize. So what kind of missions? My goodness, there's so many. There's so many possibilities. I just put up a few, but you know what? We have so many experts and creative people on this call. There's really, the sky is the limit of the type of missions that we could have. We just want to make sure that the missions are inclusive of all children, that they're age appropriate, and they're designed to lead the player from the next challenge to the next challenge, to take them through the park in a fun and a learning environment. So I want to give you just a little bit of a view. Now, obviously, this was taken in the winter. Believe me, it is a beautiful spring green now. But on this property, I want you to just to see what the possibilities are. There's a lakefront, there's a pond, there's crushed granite trails through the prairie, there's native plants and trees. And as a volunteer on this project, you'll be provided with photos and diagrams, whatever you need. We'll be here to make sure you have what you need to build out your challenge. Now, while the hospital and the rehabilitation area is not open to the public, I just wanted to include it in this video so you could get an idea of what the facility looks like. So we're seeking 10 to 15 volunteers. The project will start in June, and we do need to be finished by August because we want to have a September launch. All the work can be completed virtually, so you really don't need to live in North Texas to help me work on this project. Now, if you're going to be referring back to the Blackland Prairie ecosystem, you do need to either know something about that or learn something about it. So that might be something that you would need to research. We'll have an educational and a directional seminar in June. A Raptor Center coach will be available to you throughout the project to help you answer any questions. If you need photos or you need maps or you need diagrams of the park or where you'll be, or the prairie where you're going to be completing your mission and challenges, we'll be here to make sure you have that. And if the mission requires it, or if you want to work with a team, you can certainly do that. Now, what to expect? As a volunteer, you're going to need a computer, you're going to need to have internet capabilities, but you don't need to have any gaming experience. You don't need to be an app developer. Now, it would be helpful if you've used an app on your smartphone so you know how apps work. But if you haven't, this will be a great time to learn. We're looking for volunteers that can relate nature topics to children and families and people that are creative. So we also desire team members who can meet commitments and who aren't afraid to ask questions. You need to be able to ask for help if you need anytime during the project. This is a really important project to our team, and we want to make sure that we finish on time so we can launch on time. I would expect the training and directions to take about an hour. There'll probably be an additional 30-minute call with your coach to just determine your mission, because we would want different people working on different missions. These times are just estimates and they can vary. Because we haven't done this before, we're not 100% sure, but given everything we know about it, this is what our estimates are. Now, the challenges that you're going to be creating are only about 1 to 3 sentences, and you'll have about 10 challenges per mission. But it's going to take time to look at the maps, to develop your mission, to develop the way you want it to flow through the park, putting your whole plan together, making sure you have everything flowing and that it's interesting to children and families. So I think there's a great opportunity for you to release your inner child. I just always think, how would I have liked to have learned when I was a child about nature? You know, these kids and families, they already have a phone in one hand, so it's going to be great to have them reaching out to nature with the other hand. The Raptor Center really needs you. The summer is our busiest time. Our hospital and our rehabilitation enclosures are completely full during the summer. We're also going to libraries almost every day of the week. So our education team is completely at capacity during the summer, and that's why we need you. So if you can help us, we would love it. We really need you, and I hope sounds interesting to you and that you guys would volunteer with us. So this is my contact information, and I know that you're going to be following up with contact information through the program, but I would love to work with you guys, and I hope that you'll join us. What questions do you guys have?
Thank you so much, Marla. I wanted to reiterate something that I put in the chat, just for those that are watching the recording. And Marla, you and I talked about this on our tech check earlier. This project is only open for those chapters that are in the Blackland Prairie ecoregion because they're trained as master naturalists for that ecoregion. However, we wanted to have you on as a way for those master naturalists that may be outside of that ecoregion, not able to participate with your specific project, to think of other partners or other opportunities similar to this project with their local conservation partners as well. Obviously, we want some Blackland Prairie ecoregion master naturalists to volunteer for you as well.
Marla, can you go back one slide, please, so that it can show your contact information, please? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So some questions while we've got some time for them. Have you already identified the prairies, or can we use a Blackland restoration prairie we're already working with?
So you would actually use the prairie that's here on the property, because the families and the children will be walking through our prairie. So you'll be identifying different things for them to look at, to think about, that would be here on the property. It will take them from location to location at the Blackland Prairie Raptor Center. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am. There's another question about your video that you shared, and if there were additional videos of the Raptor Center during different seasons so we could see some of that beautiful green up that you guys
Yes,
have
I'll
had.
make sure you have that. That's what we had available now, but we will make sure that you have current photos of current, um, um, plants and things that are available at this time of year during the summer.
Not a question, but a comment in the chat. Charles says, wonderful project. Wish it was in my chapter's ecoregion. Again, hoping that we get some Blackland Prairie ecoregion members signing up or ecoregion volunteers signing up for your project. But also want to share that there are organizations like Blackland Prairie Raptor Center out there all across the state that other volunteers outside of your ecoregion may look to help with projects similar to this.
I don't see any other questions, Marla. So thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you,
presenting your
everyone.
project today to everybody. All right. Terry, are you on already? We do still have a few minutes. We've got about a little less than 3 minutes, but Terry, if you want to go ahead and put up one of your first of 2 presentations.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me get going here. All right, is everyone seeing that all right?
Yes, it's up, but we do still have 2 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and wait just to make sure. Sometimes people pop in for the specific presentation. And as I've told other presenters, I will stop my video when you start, and I will pop back in when you have about 5 minutes left. So when you see me, that just tells you you have 5 minutes left. If you're presenting, doesn't mean you have to stop or, wrap it up really quickly. Just lets you know you have 5 minutes left. And then if by chance you're still going on in the last minute, then I will hold up a one for 1 minute left, so that way you know to wrap it up so we can get on to the next presentation. Otherwise, we'll do Q&A.
All right, sounds good. It's like an award show when they flash the lighting.
But no canes. We don't have any big long canes to play off.
Yeah, I won't get dragged off. Yeah. I'm here at the Coastal Prairie Conservancy's field office here in Waller, and we are currently experiencing some renovations and construction, and so I do just want to apologize in advance if you hear any loud noises. Hopefully they'll be quick and intermittent.
No worries. It seems like a long minute. Okay, here we are, 12:15. So we're going to get started with our next presentation, Seasonal Interest Articles on the Coastal Prairie with Terry Hendrick with Coastal Prairie Conservancy. Go ahead, Terry, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you so much. Well, again, hello, everyone. Terry Hendrick from the Coastal Prairie Conservancy. Super happy to be joining y'all. It's always exciting to get to present to this group of incredibly knowledgeable Texas master naturalists. So thank you all again for having me. Let's see here. Right, so just a little bit about us here at the Coastal Prairie Conservancy. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization working to preserve the coastal prairie for people and wildlife before it disappears. We were founded in 1992, and in those 30 years, we have been incredibly fortunate to preserve over 31,000 acres of the coastal prairie. And that's not us alone, right? That's with incredible partnerships from donors, volunteers, supporters, strategic partners, foundations, you name it. It's been an incredibly collaborative effort, and we are super, super proud to have preserved this incredible landscape forever. As it says there, we're a community-supported conservation group, and we really, really depend on sort of, like I was saying, partnerships across the board, including volunteers. And we have a lot of support from Texas Master Naturalists more broadly, so super, super exciting there. Right, let me pop over to our see if I can find my mouse. There we go. So here's a little bit of a map just to kind of show you the overview of where a lot of our preserves are located. So if you can see my cursor just west here of Houston is the Katy Prairie Preserve. That is over 18,000 acres that we've preserved outside of the city. It's great walking trails, great for birding. We have some really cool wetland complexes here and a native seed nursery also where we grow out lots of plants. And so those are other volunteer opportunities that are open to you that I won't exactly be covering here this afternoon. And then one more just kind of a map to show you that Katy Prairie Preserve again, a little bit zoomed in closer to Houston. So again, that's 18,500 acres, and it's an incredible expanse of coastal prairie. So specifically today, I'm here to talk to you. This is the first project, and we're looking for writers, right? Come one, come all. If you have a budding interest, maybe didn't quite make it to the Chronicle, but we need your support. So these are seasonal interests articles here on the prairie, and we are looking to share these out throughout the year, predominantly on our CPC blog, which you can access on our website. This is a fully remote opportunity, and sort of like I was speaking to, it's really perfect for Texas Master Naturalists, just given your education, your training on our different ecoregions, native wildlife, plants, you name it. Your skill set is incredibly valuable for this kind of project. In the articles themselves, you'll sort of explore the wildlife and plant species that are present on the prairie, and then discuss why their conservation is important here in Texas. And so in the past, we've sort of run this project using the species of greatest conservation need list from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And that's a great starting place when we're thinking about, exactly what the species are of, I think, greatest priority, as the list suggests, to cover in these articles. And so below you can just see two examples. We sort of call them State of the Species, covering the northern bobwhite and then the American bumblebee. And so in those articles, it really takes a deep dive into the species, what maybe we're doing here at CPC or other conservation partners are doing to preserve those species. And then I always love when folks sort of add in a little bit at the end about, how prospective volunteers can get involved themselves and how they might be able to support this species in their everyday life. Right. So what does the outcome look like? It's those blog posts on the CPC blog. And again, on a sort of a monthly basis. And these are really great for educational purposes. We get people all the time emailing us, asking if they can use different clips or excerpts from the articles, because they really do just provide a great wealth of information. Once the articles are published, we work really hard to promote them on social media and also in the organization's monthly newsletter, The Observer. So on the left, that kind of green box is just a little snippet from our newsletter where we're kind of plugging it. And then on the right, you can see that's a grab from Instagram, where again, we really try to promote these articles. It does take a bit of time, and we want to make sure that these articles get as much kind of face time as possible. So logistically, we're open to anybody. There's no limit or cap as far as the project goes. And as a remote opportunity, all writing and photography can take place anywhere. If you are interested in coming onto the CPC preserves to take photos, you are certainly welcome to do that. And we've had a couple of volunteers who want to come and take some photos to accompany their articles, and we absolutely love that. If photography is not up your alley or not one of your skills, don't worry one bit, because we have access to species photos of all types that we can use with the articles. So don't worry if that's not on your radar. The time commitment, so we're looking for about 500 to 750 words. And just depending on your experience or skill level, that can kind of take between 1 and 3 hours to prepare. And if you need any assistance while you're in that, right? If you hit a wall, send us a note, because we've also got some great staff members here that have a wealth of information, and we can sort of make sure that you don't get stuck up on anything. It's a very flexible opportunity, no super crazy deadlines. We really want you to take your time and create something that you're proud of. And then, once it's ready, you can turn it over to us, and we can really push that out to the world. For the schedule, our volunteers are going to be contacted via email once you sort of express your interest. And then we'll work together to figure out what species you're interested in covering, and then, if more than one, how many articles you'd like to contribute. And I just want to stress that any level of commitment is welcome. And so if this is just you're interested in just doing one, that's perfectly wonderful. And then if you want to just hit the ground running and write 10, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. Yeah, I think access to internet and a computer is important just because this is a remote opportunity. But other than that, no special equipment, expertise or advanced training is needed. And then I'll just also say, while not necessary, just having experience with that kind of research element or writing, species identification, biology, all of those sorts of things will definitely be helpful for the project. But again, not a necessary kind of prerequisite. These are some species below that you can see that we've covered in the past, that being the snowy egret, that mottled duck, and then the sparrow there. So it's really, really cool to see the different articles people put together. And I love it too when folks get to add a little bit of a personal anecdote or a story about, what they, how they connect to the species. It's really, really special. So for you, right, what's the benefit? And so I think it's really exciting that you have the opportunity to support kind of our broader environmental education efforts. Like I said, these articles are definitely used by classrooms and different groups. So it's a really cool opportunity to kind of share, spread the word. And it also provides a context to the work, right? Like we're out here preserving large swaths of land, but what does that really mean on the ground, right? And these articles do a great job of demonstrating that for folks, that these are the actual species that are being affected by this work. And so it's really, really special, and it shows that impact. And then finally, to recognize that effort, all of the Master Naturalist volunteers are very prominently credited for their contributions on the blog. We want to make sure that your name is on that work, and we want to promote you as much as we can as well. All right, so I will turn it over to some questions. Looks like we've got some.
Great. And if you wouldn't mind, Terry, go ahead and put your contact information back. A lot of times people are asking for that question.
Oh, yes. So I've got it at the very end of
Okay.
the next one. If that's okay, maybe we run through that. Okay.
It's also on our website on the catalog as well.
Yeah.
While
So
he's
we've got, here's our kind of general contact information for the project moving forward.
Well, Terry, while you're pulling that up, two of the questions in the chat were related to what I think you said at the very end of your presentation, which is about credit and who owns the content for the written articles.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we want to make sure to, of course, prominently credit you. And in the end of the day, this will be your intellectual property. We won't sort of enter into any kind of agreement as to turning that property over to us.
Same thing with the photos, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yep. Same goes for the photos as well.
And then there's some questions in the chat there's a question in the chat about trail cam pictures, using those for articles.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think we're super into kind of the more raw, authentic look. So yeah, that would be really cool. It hasn't been done before, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yeah. So y'all keep asking questions in the chat. Terry is also our next speaker. So we've got a little bit of time with Terry. So think of other things that you might want to know about his project. For those that are watching the recording and not seeing the chat live, I did put in the chat that this project is directed towards those in the Gulf Prairies ecoregion because of the familiarity needed with those native species that you'd be highlighting in these articles. But there may be similar projects if you're not in the Gulf Prairies ecoregion and not able to volunteer with this specific project with Terry. Think of other conservation organizations that may be nearby you and looking for volunteers to do similar type of work as what Terry is requesting here. But if you are in the Gulf Prairies ecoregion, then please, I encourage you to think about signing up for Terry's projects that he's got sharing with us today. Terry, we have another couple minutes until your next presentation. And as Judith mentioned, we do have folks that like to jump in right on time. So we're going to hold off and get ready for your next presentation at 2:30 in just another couple of minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Leave y'all in suspense until then.
And Judith just had a quick malfunction with her computer, so I'm going to take on MC role as she's reconnecting, which seems to happen, and everybody just kind of flows with it. There's a question in the chat, not for you, Terry, but for our program for the sign-up survey, Christine. You can actually submit more than one survey response. I didn't clarify that at the beginning. My apologies for that. So if you signed up for a project this morning because you were eager and excited about it, that's great. You can actually go back into the survey, fill it out again for any of the afternoon sessions that now you're excited to volunteer with. I know, I get excited too, Christine, and I can't stop, and I have to start clicking on things. So we have about 2 more minutes until we get into Terry's next presentation. Again, just a general reminder for all of our volunteers that are on live or watching us recording, our SurveyMonkey link, which is on our Virtual Volunteer Fair page, will be open until Friday, April 26th. At the end of that day, Friday, we'll be closing that survey link, and then that following week, we'll be pulling the report for all volunteers that have signed up for specific projects and sharing those lists of volunteers with those project host contacts so that they can then reach out with additional training, additional resources, or how to get started with them. So be patient with that process. It's not a volunteer tomorrow kind of virtual volunteer fair. We want to make sure that we're giving everybody a chance to watch the recording and thoroughly review before they sign up for projects. Hannah's dropped the link in the chat a few times. We've got still just about a minute left, Terry, but in the chat and then on our website, we have the catalog of all of our projects that includes project host contact information if you have more questions that were answered today. If you want to know more details about some of the projects that you've heard, we've requested from each project host a full page worth of information about their project. So that if you need it in a written format rather than a presentation format, we've got it there in that catalog as well. All right, I've got about 30 more seconds, but I'm going to go ahead and we'll get Terry started here with our 12:30 presentation, our second to last for a virtual volunteer fair. Photographers needed, help bring the coastal prairie to life. So Terry Hendricks, it's all yours.
All righty, thank you so much. Back again, folks. So with our next opportunity, again, we are looking for some volunteer photographers to really help show the coastal prairie's beauty. Not a very hard thing to do. It's a beautiful landscape. And so really, we're looking for folks that just enjoy kind of the natural beauty of wildflowers, grasses, native plants, and maybe even wildlife. And again, we're looking for those volunteers to take photos for us. Photographers are welcome to visit us here at the Indian Grass Preserve, which is located in Waller, Texas. That's just about an hour west of Houston, as well as some of our other preserves that are not frequently open to the public. And I'll get into a little bit more about that kind of segment a little bit later into the slides. Here's a great photo of some of our volunteer photographers out on the prairie themselves. So the outcomes, right? We're looking for photos to use throughout our publications. And what we're most excited about is really viewing the prairie through your lens, right? that we don't have any strict recommendations or kind of rules on the style. And so we like to see all those different kind of styles that our photographers use. So we can see we've got a wonderful T. Thibodeau, and he does a great job of capturing some of our wildlife. That's a great snow goose shot. Other times it's, more of the landscape. And so you can see some great fence lines there, just kind of showing what the work looks like on the ground. Other times it's these great, beautiful landscapes. And then we do like to kind of highlight specific species. Pollinators are always great to capture. And so it's really kind of to choose your own adventure here based on what your photography style is and what you enjoy capturing most. So logistics, we welcome all interested photographers here. So just like the last project, there's no real limit. You're welcome to come here, as I said, to the Indian Grass Preserve here in Waller during our open hours. There is also an opportunity for access to properties not open to the public, and those will be organized ahead of time and guided by a CPC staff member. Those are some really, really cool preserves located here on the Katy Prairie Preserve that are private. And so folks often don't have the opportunity to go back and see the really incredible habitats that exist there. This is a completely flexible opportunity. So again, there's no kind of fixed commitment or deadline. And we really are just grateful for any photos that you are willing to share. Interested volunteers are going to be contacted by our staff with information on our public preserves and photography rules. And then once you're on our photography list, we often send out kind of updates on, oh, here we've got a great bloom of so-and-so species right now, or, the wetlands are full and it's a great time to capture some of those aquatic species. And so you'll be added to that list if you are interested. All right, so experience and equipment. I think naturally experience with nature sort of photography and access to that equipment is needed to support this project. But also don't feel like, you have to have, sort of elaborate equipment or, this whole kind of spread. We really do welcome all and all kind of skill levels. And so you can see it sort of ranges. We've got one photographer here that's got a very sophisticated mount on his car and mics and the whole thing. And then other times it's going out with a tripod and just capturing some great stills or different pieces of the landscape. And so you want to have kind of that baseline of experience and equipment, but again, please don't disqualify yourself if you feel like you might be a little bit newer to it. We're excited to welcome all for sure. So the benefits to you. So it's an excellent opportunity to photograph the coastal prairie. One of the coastal prairie's, I think, more subtle, really wonderful things about it is how dynamic the landscape is. And so coming here across the span of 4 seasons, you see incredibly different things and a lot of change. And so it's a really remarkable thing to get to experience. As I sort of said, you'll be able to access some private preserves that really offer a cool window into some pieces of the prairie that are very rarely seen by the public. There's some really beautiful places. And then you'll also get to kind of further develop those photography skills while also supporting our conservation efforts. And the impact for us is humongous, right? Because we really depend on those photographers to bring the prairie's beautiful ecosystem to life. And that's for donors, supporters, potential partners, and even prospective funders, right? I think people really, really want to visualize what they're interested in supporting, and these photographs are absolutely critical to that. And then, you'll also just make sure that people know what this beautiful landscape looks like for generations to come. So it's an incredible impact and very, very helpful for us. I'm so sorry. I'm a very fast talker sometimes, so I just breeze right through these. Again, here's the project contact information. After you express interest, we'll follow up with you via email and then kind of coordinate, as I said, which preserves you're interested in visiting. You'll be added to that list to make sure that you're aware of any kind of exciting things we have going on and some cool photography opportunities as well.
No worries, Terry, about being fast. You're being efficient. So there is one question in the chat. It's how would we add volunteer hours for our photos?
Yeah, Rodrigo, I can actually answer that question for you. For community science for data collection, similar to this photo project, you would want to work with your local chapter. This project and Terry's previous project are both available for chapter members in our Gulf Prairies ecoregion. And you would follow our community citizen science project guidelines that I just dropped in the chat. Or if you're listening to this recording, you would search for community citizen science project guidelines on our website. And that'll give you a little bit of information on how that process works for recording that type of observations. Terry, there is a question in the chat for you. Sandy would like you to describe some of the areas that are not open to the public.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So here on the prairie, it's a really interesting mix. So we obviously have some restored, prairie wetlands complexes. We've also got some really interesting working lands here on the prairie that are not frequently open. And so that's a really great opportunity to see some rice fields, different kind of, cattle operations that attract a really interesting array of wildlife as sort of part of that. And so there's definitely that side of it. And then also we have just some beautiful, beautiful restored prairies owned by private landowners. And like I said, those obviously are sort of off the road and don't see very much visitation, but they are really remarkable landscapes and untouched a lot of times. And so you'll get to see kind of a really cool mix of those kind of behind the scenes looks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There is another question. Is this volunteer opportunity only available to those chapters local to Gulf Coast, or can those of us that would like to come down from other chapters also put our hat in the ring with or without VH?
Volunteer hours. So Josh, I can actually answer that question, and Michelle may jump in here as well. So as part of our virtual volunteer fair, we showcase projects from around the state and those that are ecoregion based, similar to Terry's and some of the others that you've heard today. And while Terry's projects are ecoregion based, for volunteer hours available for chapter members in the Gulf Prairies ecoregion, we like to show off projects like Terry's for the whole statewide program so that y'all can consider other conservation organizations that may be nearby you. Say you're up in the Panhandle and you have a conservancy group that is looking for something similar. And it's a good way to think about other ways that our volunteers can reach out with their fellow conservation organizations in their neighborhood. So for volunteer hours, Joshua, you would need to be a volunteer member in a Gulf Prairies ecoregion chapter to volunteer with Terry's project specifically this year. But I do encourage you to look for other opportunities in your area to volunteer, similar to what Terry's looking for here today. Oh, there's another question. Christine asks what chapters are included in the Gulf Coast ecoregion. So that would be something that you would need to look up on on your Texas ecoregion map. And I honestly do not have that memorized well enough to be able to spout those out today. Sorry, I fail at that.
So Jim did say that he lives in Austin, but would be happy to take photos there if okay. You just wouldn't get the hours then. Essentially, you wouldn't be able to claim the hours, but you could.
Yes, yeah. And so there may be public opportunities for non-volunteering master naturalists to engage with Coastal Prairie Conservancy. And Terry, I think reaching out to you directly or through your email that you had on the screen earlier would be a way for those that are not volunteering but wanting to come out and sightsee at some of your prairies. Might be a way to connect.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I'm super appreciative to those folks who would be willing to come out even without the hours. It's very kind.
Yeah.
Okay, we still have 5 minutes left. So we have one last presentation. So we are going to get started at 12:45 with that presentation. And in the meantime, Terry, thank you so much for presenting as always and coming back again and joining us for the various volunteer fairs. And let's see, I don't think I see any other any other questions.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And thank y'all so much. I really appreciate the time. Y'all have a good afternoon.
You too.
Thank you so much, Terry.
And Alicia. Are you there already? Oh, I see you. Okay. If you would like to, you can go ahead and put your presentation up on screen, share. But we do still have 4 minutes before we begin.
So while Alicia is getting her presentation pulled up for our 12:45 and our final presentation of the day, just a reminder for those that are watching live, we've been dropping the chat link. We've been dropping the link in the chat for our virtual volunteer fair page. That is where the Survey Monkey link is to sign up for some of these great projects that you've heard today, to review more information about them in our catalog, for contact information for some of our presenters if you've missed it. That is also where we will be posting the recording from today's session on our virtual volunteer fair page. So that is a one-stop shop for all the information that you may need regarding the virtual volunteer fair, including the timeline. Again, our SurveyMonkey link will close on Friday, April 26th. That following week, I'll pull reports, share that contact information with our project hosts, who will then be responsible for reaching out to you as potential volunteers, setting up additional trainings, meetings, resource setups for you to be a volunteer with their specific projects.
And since we still have a few minutes left, I wanted to mention 2 other additional projects that have not been presented due to time constraints of the presenters, of the project leads, but there are 2 additional ones that have not been presented today, and it is Time to Restore: Connecting People, Plants, and Pollinators by the USA National Phenology Network, Nature's Notebook, and then there's also the Monarch Larva Monitoring Project by Wendy Caldwell with Monarch Joint Venture. So those 2 particular projects have not been presented today. However, they are in the catalog, so be sure to check those out if you think you might be interested in volunteering on those 2 projects as well. About 2 minutes left. Stand up and stretch. So have you been with us throughout the afternoon, Marisa, or did you have to take care of some other business?
Well, I'm filling in for Marisa actually.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry, Alicia. I'm sorry. I meant you.
it's confusing that I have her name up there, but I thought it was it, to just keep everything that she has
Yes,
the same.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I was going to start off by clarifying for those who are probably like, oh, wait a minute, she presented as another person earlier, and now she has another name
Good
a few
point.
hours later. Yeah.
But you really have spent the whole morning with us, Alicia.
Yeah, I have. All
Getting
these
here.
projects are so interesting. I'm
Oh
loving it.
man,
Morning
if
and
only y'all had all the
afternoon.
time in the world. Yeah, so much great stuff going on around the state. It's exciting to hear about it all.
Yeah. Still learning so much about the environmental network here in Texas.
A lot of good work going on, that's for sure.
Yes.
And the reach of our Master Naturalist volunteers is so vast, and it's so exciting to get to showcase some of these projects, but then get to see in a year's time or 6 months' time after this volunteer fair, get to hear and see the results of some of these projects that our volunteers have gotten to participate in.
Yes.
Okay, it is 12:45, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. Alicia Fonteno is going to be speaking on Spanish translation of regional wildlife and nature guides, and she is with the Texas Children in Nature Network. So go ahead, we can hear you and we can see your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. To clarify why Marisa's name is on the presentation, because it's her presentation and I'm speaking on her behalf. And so thank you for allowing me to do that. She's extremely busy, as we established earlier, with tons of projects going on in the Rio Grande Valley area. For those who may have came in late, I'm with Texas Children in Nature Network. We are a statewide nonprofit, so we have about 800 plus partners throughout the state of Texas, and our network is one of our key components of how we are able to meet our mission, which is ensuring that children have equitable access to nature experiences and programming. So I have this slide up here again because I wanted to give a brief explanation this time of what LEAP is and kind of some background and history of how Marisa came about this program and how it was born in the Texas region. So when Marisa first joined the TCIN team at least 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago, she attended a Cities Connecting Children to Nature conference where she attended a session and different attendees were presenting on projects and programming that they had going on. And she learned there about Nature Smart Libraries, which is a larger initiative. And so underneath that initiative are nature backpacks. And she learned that that was something that was being done throughout the state, the United States, just in different ways and modified according to those regions. And so she did some research because she was like, TCIN doesn't have any projects right now. This would be a great project to take on. And fast forward a year later, she was able to launch the LEAP project in the Rio Grande Valley area. Now, one thing I will say that makes our LEAP project different from other nature backpack programs is that our backpacks are tied to a state or national park. And so we have a partnership with Texas Parks and Wildlife where we're allowing participants to have 2 free entrances into the state parks. And we are actually the first loaner nature backpack program to do that in the state of Texas. So going into the problem or the challenges that Marisa faced in piloting the program is that she realized that in finding resources for the Spanish packs, they were either very limited or not available for her. So she, for instance, for the garden backpack, for the birding backpack, different nature centers or state parks typically have pamphlets that they create or one-pager birding guides and things of that nature with a name and maybe a description of the bird. So there was not a Spanish equivalent. And in her efforts to try to create that equivalent, she realized that there were various Spanish names for each common name for that species. And so it became a very tedious task for her to take on, in addition to all of the other project components in launching LEAP. So going into the project description, the goal of the project is to essentially translate those wildlife and nature guides that are typically at partnering nature sites or local nature sites in state parks or even local parks. And the idea is that there would be a collaboration between the health and nature liaisons, the state parks, and finding and identifying which guides do we want to use. So again, there are about 9+ themes for LEAP. So birding, gardening, outdoor skills. And so if they have guides relevant to those themes, the idea is to find which guides they want to use and then translate them into Spanish guides so that we have those available for LEAP participants. And also, like I mentioned, it became a tedious task because there was some research needing to be done and kind of finding which Spanish term was relevant to that region because it varies depending on the region. And so that was something that is required in translating these different materials. Additionally, I want to say that although the translations will be utilized for the LEAP backpack, once these materials are established, they can be distributed to libraries, those state parks that are participating, other nature centers. And so this just helps expand access to this type of information for the whole region in general. So it's a larger scale impact that we're seeing by requesting this type of service from you all. And so here's some examples that she put on her presentation. There's a guide that just has a list of species, and you could check them off. And then there's another guide where it's just the picture and a common name. And then there's a more detailed guide where there's a picture, name, description, references, and things of that nature. And so directly, the product is that she wants those types of guides to be translated. But the idea is that you don't have to recreate the guide. And if that's something and you're an overachiever and you want to do that, by all means, we're not going to stop you. But she literally just wants the information translated. And so, for instance, for a bird on here, you would just have the English name and then a Spanish translation. So she's just requesting the information to be translated. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the impact is much bigger than just the LEAP program. It would expand across the region and creating a greater access to this type of information and these hobbies that we know are so enjoyable for families who may not have the opportunity to do this outside of the LEAP program. So project experience, equipment, and advanced training. It's pretty similar to if you saw my presentation. As long as you have access to the internet, a computer or a phone, then you should be great. There's no additional supplies that you need to complete these translations. And she's just asking that the type of expertise that you should have is maybe proficient in Spanish and great communication skills in Spanish or English. And cultural awareness and sensitivity is much appreciated, obviously. And knowledge of local plants and wildlife is recommended, but not needed. One, because a lot of it is going to be researching that region and finding what specific name is the most appropriate for the translation. So for project logistics, she is requesting 3 to 5 per region, and there are 3 regions. I'll reiterate those regions: North Texas, Gulf Coast, and the Rio Grande Valley. All of the work is remote, so it is extremely flexible in your schedule and what works best for you. She has a timeline of 1 to 3 months during the summertime, and she's hoping to have these materials by sometime in early fall of this year. And that is the conclusion of her presentation. And this is her information. I know someone, I think, asked for it in a chat earlier. And I did see some questions in the chat earlier that I was not able to answer in the chat. And someone asked about the clear backpacks. I believe they transitioned from the clear backpacks to the opaque backpacks because the clear backpacks were not sturdy enough, or they didn't last as long, because there's like $200 worth of material in that backpack. So over time, the wear and tear just kind of destroyed it faster than they wanted it to, wear and tear. So that's why they transitioned to the opaque backpacks.
I can imagine the tear on the backpacks is pretty rough, with kids of my own tearing up backpacks every year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to source for stability. There's a question in the chat that's really more directed for the Master Naturalist program about a volunteer that is outside of the Master Naturalist program looking to volunteer with your project. And so, Mary, if there's, or for the lady who asked the question in the chat, Mary, feel free to connect your brother with the project host here. Although we are using our virtual volunteer fair in earnest to try to connect Master Naturalist volunteers with these projects, giving them a chance to volunteer during the upcoming hot summer months.
I did have a question for you, Alicia. The
Yes.
backpacks, it sounds like they are intended. I'm sorry? Oh, it does sound like the backpacks are intended for a family. But is there enough in there, do you think, that a classroom, like a teacher wanting to borrow it for her class? I mean, obviously she could set up stations and just have like maybe one area, one station be the backpack itself, I guess, if she's wanting to do something with her class with a group of maybe 20 to 30 kids. I don't even know how big classrooms are today. They might be as big as 30. But
That's a great question, actually. So the backpacks are for ages 2 and up and for family use. And honestly, I don't see why she wouldn't be able to if she wanted to check it out for educational purposes and showing her classroom, because that may encourage some of the students to go on their own
Sure.
and
Yeah.
check them out. But this is a conversation that I actually had with a partner some weeks ago, and she has a app that is encouraging families to have nature experiences. And so she asked something very similar. And the way she approached it was maybe using having the teachers have it first so that it would expose the children to checking out the backpacks and then completing her family nature challenges with the backpack. But I don't see why it wouldn't be applicable to teachers if they wanted to do a demonstration or have a station set up during class hours.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. I mean, that way it's introduced to the kids and they can go if she lets them know, if especially if there's a park nearby that they can get it. And you did say also, and I apologize, I don't think there's any other questions. You did also mention that these were available at libraries, right?
Yes, so we targeted libraries, schools, and I know that more recently, I think Melissa branched off to community centers and a food bank
Okay.
for one of them. But yes, specifically we targeted those host sites because they have a check-in and check-out process already established. So it just made sense to do it that way.
There's a question I think in there for you, Mary Pearl.
Yeah, I was just gonna type it, but you beat me to it. Because these backpacks are ecoregion specific, we are looking for volunteers within the master naturalist ecoregions of these backpacks to be able to participate in them. But if you want to reach out to the project hosts as a potential volunteer, please read through the project catalog to make sure that that there's a match there. One last question. As we've talked about these backpacks and we've seen pictures, can you give us a little hint on what's inside some of these backpacks?
Yes. So there are tons of neat things. So for the birding backpack, I know that they have binoculars. In the insects and butterfly theme, they have insect catchers. In the fishing theme, they have like a mini fishing kit. In the gardening and nutrition backpack, they actually have a mini gardening kit so that families can do porch gardens. Just because Houston is a huge urban area and a lot of people may live in apartments, so porch gardens are very or easier alternatives than starting like an entire garden. It's also less intimidating for someone who's never planted before. So we
So
try
it's
to include everything that they would need to do the activity inside of the pack.
So some of the packs then will be using up the materials within the pack and some will not. Is that right?
So what
Consumable.
we've
Consumable, yes. Yes, good.
so we've tried to avoid them as much as possible. Most of the things in a pack don't have to be replenished. I think in the gardening pack they do add seeds there, but most of the items don't need to be replenished. So the information sheets are laminated. The tools just have to be maintenance, so maybe like a wiped down and things of that nature. But most of the things don't have to be replaced, just because we want it to be less work on the libraries because some of them are short-staffed.
Definitely. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Alicia, for coming back again and presenting all of the different projects through Texas Children Nature Network. It's a great organization for sure. For those of you, this pretty much concludes all of our presenters, but don't forget there are 2 additional projects that were not presented today and they are in the catalog. They are Time to Restore, Connecting People, Plants, and Pollinators, and Monarch Larva Monitoring Project. So please make sure to check those two additional projects out in the catalog to see if those might be of interest to you as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mary Pearl. And she's going to.
I'm just going to close out for those that weren't on during our introduction early this morning. Want to say a big thank you to all of our project hosts and all of our master naturalists that joined us throughout the day or are watching this as a recording during our National Volunteer Month where we're celebrating our volunteers. What better way to celebrate than to sign up to volunteer with new partners and new projects? one of the reasons why we have our virtual volunteer fair this month. If you were not on for the introduction, just running through our intro slides one more time to share resources and information. All of our information for today's virtual volunteer fair is on our website under Naturalist News. The link is on your screen and has also been dropped in the chat throughout the day today. So scroll to our website, go to Naturalist News, and then go to our virtual volunteer fair page. On that page, we have our survey for, we have our catalog for each of our projects, and in our catalog has project contact information, project details, project resources, so much information, including those projects that were not able to be presented today.
And to just another note to make sure that you do take a look at the catalog, because everything that was approved as service for the Master Naturalist program today is in the catalog.
Yep. So that catalog is a very valuable resource for you as you're making your selection and signing up for your volunteer projects that you're interested in. To sign up for those projects, you will use the SurveyMonkey link that's on the screen and has been dropped in the chat throughout the day today. And that SurveyMonkey link will allow you to sign up for a project, show your interest in volunteering for a specific individual project or multiple projects. Make sure that you're referencing that catalog and you're signing up for projects that are applicable to your ecoregion as a Master Naturalist. We will close that link on Friday, April 26th. That following week, we will then pull a report, share your contact information with those project hosts so that they can then reach out to you as a volunteer, providing additional training, resources, and next steps needed in those projects. And please note, in some instances, we've had more volunteers sign up for projects than what that project may be able to use for a specific project. So just know that over-eager volunteers is normal sometimes, and they may need to whittle down the volunteer list.
And if you've been watching and you've found more projects that you're interested in, even after you've submitted your interest to one or another project previously on the survey, you'll need to go back in and enter. If you find more that you're interested, you go back in and enter more. So there's not a way to edit your entry, but just it's a simple go back in and add additional information to your survey.
And then if you've stuck with us throughout the day watching our virtual volunteer fair, you can log hours for today. And Michelle, you want to talk through that?
Yep. So today's event does count as advanced training. This is our TMN Tuesday offering for April during National Volunteer Month and leading up to National Volunteer Week, Recognition Week. Normal policies apply for our TMN Tuesday advanced training events, and this being the virtual volunteer fair. You can record advanced training to the nearest quarter hours for the total amount of time that you actually watched. So if you popped in and out, just sum the time that you were actually watching. If you're watching the recording, do a summary of the time that you actually watched the recording.
And Michelle, I just noticed we have an error on this slide. The maximum time to report for today would be 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, not in that, that's not including the breaks.
Yes, not including.
So minus the breaks.
3 hours, exactly. 3 hours. Excuse me. I will make sure that that slide gets updated.
So yeah, sorry about that. Just minor inconvenience there. And then just another final reminder regarding the projects. There are a couple different projects that were offered today. Some are totally virtual, some are place-based. And the place-based projects you will need to have reviewed and approved at your local chapter level and have those project opportunities developed in your VMS system for you to report to at your local chapter level. And then the virtual projects, you would report to the statewide item that is in the VMS that's already been set up statewide for the Texas Master Naturalist Program. We've been doing this virtual volunteer fair for multiple years now on multiple times during a year. So all chapters should have the virtual service project set up in VMS already. If you're a new chapter like Brushy Canyons chapter, that might need to be shared down to you, and we can have the VMS help desk help with that. And then real quick, a reminder that some of these projects did have an element of citizen science involved with them. Just remember our citizen science, community science policies for the program. Actually reporting the observations is the service. So the active service of actually reporting the observations is the service that needs to be reported, not just the passive act of going out and trying to find and document some of the species. And then last slide.
There we go.
Okay, once again, this is the offering of our Texas Master Naturalist Program provided through federal funding. And so we do ask that if you can contribute, help us continue the funding for this program and the advanced training like this going forward. And we'd love for your input on this survey that helps us remain eligible for that funding. You can hover over the QR code there. And then we also have a link that's already been in the chat. Thanks, Anna.
All right. Thank y'all so much for watching our virtual volunteer fair for 2024. Really appreciate everybody joining us for the morning. A rainy morning here where I'm at in Central Texas. So a good way to spend it with some volunteers hearing about all the great things that our program has the potential to do all around the state and what our conservation partners are doing around the state. Thank you guys all so much, and have
last
a great
question. There was a question in the chat about where you can find the recording of this event. It will be on our TMN Tuesday advanced training page, and then also we'll have the recording posted in the virtual volunteer page. So there's kind of two places right now. They will link to each other, and once the recording closes and processes, that takes a little bit of time. It'll be posted to our website.
There you go. All right. Y'all have a great afternoon and enjoy the rest of your spring, April week. Thank you so much, Judith, for all your help today.